Okay, so we start from there. We start from graphing, how to find the domain, the range, and everything. So we'll start with this. Let's say we have f of x is equal to 3x minus 1 divided by 1 minus x. First question is find the domain, the range, and sketch the graph. Sometimes they can't ask you to find the domain and the range. They can ask you to say find the asymptote. If you know how to find the domain, you know how to find the range, you know how to find the asymptote. You get my point, eh? So how do we find the domain? For this domain, these are the values of x. For this function to be defined, I can plug in any number on top of there. This function is going to be defined, but the problem is going to be on the bottom part. On the bottom part there, let's take for instance we plug in 1. If I put where there's x, we plug in 1. What is going to happen down there? I want you to be sharp. Don't make class to be boring. If I plug in 1 where there's x, what's going to happen down there? It's going to be undefined. Okay. You can't do what? Okay. So now what I want you to, you can log out and log in again. It's your network. Your friend can see the screen. So the issue here, guys, is this. We don't want to have the situation where we're going to have 0 on the denominator. Okay? Once you have been given the fraction, they want you to find the domain. What you have to do is get the bottom part or get the denominator, set it not equal to 0. So 1 minus x has to be not equal to 0. So for x, that is the domain. At the same time, that is the vertical asymptote. Okay, so x, negative x, not equal to negative 1. So x will be not equal to 1, meaning that I can plug in any value where there is x, but I should not plug in 1. Then this function is going to be defined. Meaning that even the graph, if they ask you to find the vertical asymptote, the vertical asymptote is now 1, meaning that your graph is not going to touch where there is 1. If this is 1, this is 2. The graph will not touch this line. So the domain is the x value. The domain is the vertical asymptote. Get me right. If they ask you to find the domain, you have the fraction, get the denominator, set it not equal to 0. So for x, that is the domain. At the same time, that is the vertical asymptote. The graph can't touch that line. Okay? Now, how do we write the domain? We write the domain, you can write the domain in two forms. It's either you can use the cent interval notation where you can say that the domain will be from negative infinity, you can plug in any number all the way to 1, but 1 not included, union 1 all the way to positive infinity, meaning 1 is not included. You can plug in any value, but 1 is not going to be included. Another way on how to represent the domain is you can put it in this form. X, in set builder notation, x is such that x is not supposed to be equal to 1, but x can be any value as long as it is a real number. That is my domain. Is that okay? Does that make sense? Is that okay? Yes. Now, what I'm going to do now here, what I'm going to do now, for me to find the range, I told you to say, if you have been given this function, what you have to do is for you to find the range, get the inverse of this function. Then, the same way we have used on how to find the domain, that is the range. Because if I tell you to start using that issue of bottom half, you are going to be confused, believe me. So let's find the inverse of this function. So our function, to find the inverse, you just say y, you equate this one to y is equal to 3x minus, I've forgotten the equation, it was minus 1 divided by what? Divided by 1 minus x. Now, solve the, make x as a subject of formula. I'm going to cross multiply. This is going to give me y. This is going to give me y minus xy has to be equal to 3x minus 1. I want to make x as a subject of formula, meaning that is my inverse. I'll shift this to the other side, this to the other side. And I'm going to say, I'm going to have negative xy minus 3x has to be equal to negative 1 plus y. Okay? I want to make x as a subject of formula. What do we do? I'm going to factor out x. Open bracket. Here I'm going to have negative y minus 3 has to be equal to negative 1 plus y. This is going to give me this. X will be equal to negative 1 plus y, everything divided by negative y plus minus 3. I can factor out negative down there. X will be equal to negative 1 plus y. Then I factor out negative. I'm going to have this plus this. I divide it by negative on top. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have 1 minus y is equal to y plus 3. Does that make sense? Now, what I'm going to do after reaching on this is when they ask you to find the range. This, you make x as a subject of formula, then get the bottom part, because when we're talking about the range, we are talking about the values of y, guys. So I'm going to get the bottom part. This is the bottom part. The same method which I used when calculating the what, when finding the domain, I'm going to say this has not equal to 0. So for y will be equal to, or y will not be equal to what? To negative 3. That is my range. So I'm going to say that range is going to be equal to y is such that y is not supposed to be equal to negative 3. But y should be any member of what? Real numbers. So this is my range. At the same time, you can also use the same from here to find the range, because range is the same as the horizontal asymptote. To find the horizontal asymptote, we get this divided by the coefficient of this. If we have got x 3x divided by what? If the powers of x are the same, we divide them. So we were saying it's going to be 3 divided by negative 1, which is going to give you negative 3. So that is the range. So range will be not equal to what? Negative 3, if you want to use this one direct. What if they ask you to find the horizontal asymptote? The horizontal asymptote, the same range is the horizontal asymptote. So here, our horizontal asymptote is negative 3. Meaning that the line, when I graph this, when I put it on the graph, this is my graph. Okay? We assume to say we have 1, we have 2, we have 3. We have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we also have, let's get another value. Then here we also have another values. So we have 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's put 5. Even here we can include negative 5. What it means is that the horizontal asymptote, we have found 3. This is the horizontal. The graph will not cut this line. Okay? The vertical asymptote, we have found that it is 1. The graph will not touch this line. So this is the horizontal asymptote. The vertical, asymptote. This is the horizontal asymptote. Before we start graphing that function, ask me if you have got questions, guys. Believe me, you. Yes, yes.
Are there cases when you use the numerator to find the domain and
N-
the range?
no, there is no any case. You always use the denominator because the numerator will not be affected, but only the denominator. When you equate, when it is zero, then it's going to be undefined. But on top of that, even if you put zero, the function is going to be defined. We don't use numerator. You get the denominator. Is that okay, Womba?
Yes.
Do we have people with questions? We want now to graph this. I've told you to say, if they have given you this function, this is the function here. They give you. They can ask you to find the domain and the range. Then they tell you to say sketch the graph. At the same time, they can ask you to say find the vertical asymptote and horizontal asymptote. Vertical asymptote, when you find the domain, that is the vertical asymptote. When you find the range, that is the horizontal asymptote. Mhm. Yes, we are going there, sir. We we are going there, sir. Don't worry about that. We are going there. But I want you to ask me what you have done so far. Are you okay on how to find the domain if you have been given the fraction? Are we okay on how to find the vertical asymptote, on how to find the horizontal asymptote and the range? Are we okay?
So if they haven't given yes,
If they haven't given you, if they haven't given you the what?
given you a fraction like that and they've just given you like 3x minus 1, we use the same one.
If they have given you a fraction, there is no x on the denominator.
No, no, if they don't give you a fraction,
If they
they haven't
don't,
given you any fraction.
meaning that the domain is all real numbers. To find the range, you have to plot it first. Then you are going to see how the range is going to come about.
Okay.
Sure. So the domain is going to be all real numbers. If you have been given, if it's just like this, 3x minus 2. Now let's plot this. This is what we are going to do. To get the coordinate, you only have to do this. Simple and straightforward. You put your x here, you put your y here. Get your gamma function. 3x minus 1 divided by 1 minus x. Okay? That was our equation, right? Now from there, what you have to do, yes, was,
It's okay. I'll ask later.
thank you. Yes, Mbewe. Okay. Yes, yes. You find, yes, it's okay. It's okay. But when you say the x and y intercept, sometimes it's going, okay. When you find the x and y intercept, it's going to give you one side only. So it's going to be difficult unless you know what you are doing, because if you find that the graph, the first intercept, when you find the x intercept, you're going to get one side. For example, let's say you get this. This is your graph. You're going to get one side. Then you have to know that the opposite of that is supposed to be like another one is going to come like this. But this is going to confuse you. But the method which I want you to know here, you are going to see what's going to happen here. You are going to be getting both x and y. When you plot it here, it's going to come out perfectly. You get my point, eh? Yes. So now from here, what we are going to do, we are going to get the values of x except 1. We are saying that x has not to be equal to 1. So meaning that we're not supposed to plug in 1. So we are going to say that this was our what? This is our what? Our vertical asymptote. From the vertical asymptote, get two values from right, also get two values from the left, then plug in the values there. You are going to see the graph is going to come out perfect, guys. So we're going to get two values from the left, which is going to be 0 and negative 1. although we start with -1, not 0. -1 and 0, not so. Then we also get 2 from the left. We start from 0. Say 0 and -1. We also get 2 from the right. We are going to get a 2 and a 3. I don't know if you are confused there. You skip the asymptote because we are saying that x is not equal to 1. Get 2 values from the right and 2 values from the left. Plug in the values. You are going to discover to say the value of y, you can never find -3 because -3 is the horizontal asymptote. You can never find this if we plug in these values which I've just gotten here. Is that okay? We continue. So I'm going to plug in. If I put 0 there, what are we going to have? If I plug in 0 in the equation, what are we going to have? The value of y?
-1.
-1. If I plug in -1 here, what are we going to have? If I plug in -1 in this equation, what are we going to have? It's going to give us what?
-2.
Are you sure -2? Yes, it's going to give us a -2. If I plug in 2, oh, so here I'm supposed to get 2 values from the right, so I'm going to get 2 and 3. If I plug in 2, what are we going to have?
So I have a question.
Yes?
Where exactly are we plugging in the numbers?
In this
The
function,
down part or the up?
where there is x, both top part and down part.
Okay.
Yes. So if I plug in 2 where there is x, I plug in 2 there, I plug in 2 there. What are we going to have? Let's do first. I'm going to get a 6. I'm going to get a 6. 6 minus 2, or 6 minus 1, I'm going to get a 5. -5. If I plug in 3, I'm going to get a 9 minus 1, which is going to be 8. Then here is going to be 2. What are we going to get? -4. These are the coordinates which we're going to use. So let's go ahead and now plug in the values. But allow me to write these coordinates. I want us to have a perfect graph. Let me do this. I'll start from there, then I do this. So I'm going to have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. So our vertical horizontal asymptote is at 3 at this line. So that is our horizontal asymptote. Where have I gone now? That is our horizontal asymptote. Now what I'm going to do now is I'll start now plotting this. We have come up with this, guys. I hope we are together there. We have come up with this. Which color should I use? Let me use red color. We have got 0, -1. Where is 0, -1? This point here. Where is -1, -2? -1 in x, -2 is this point here. Does that make sense? I'll go to the next. Where is 2, -5? 2 in x, -5 is here. Where is 3, -4? 3 is here, 4 is somewhere here. Meaning that the first graph, this is supposed to be, it's going to be running away from the asymptote. It comes there, it goes like this. I do this. This one is coming from the asymptote, running away from the asymptote, again going there. So that is the graph. Now if you use the x-intercept, you can only get this part. Then you have to reflect this one to this part. That's why I was telling you that the asymptote, when you find the x-intercept, it's going to be hard for you to know that another graph is this side. So this is the graph, and this question came last year. Any question? And this is coming tomorrow. Whether you like it or not, they are going to ask you how to find the range, how to find the domain, and also how to find the what? How to sketch the graph. Do you have questions?
Yes, sir.
What are the questions?
Sorry, can you like just run us through a bit, like
You you
just
you
stating like to find the vertical asymptote, you do this and that and that. That's all.
Swazi, were you there when we were starting solving this question?
No, you didn't let me in.
No, you didn't
You
join
didn't
on.
let me in, sir.
So what's your question first? What's your question, Swazi?
I'm just saying, like, since I wasn't there at the beginning, I just wanted you to like run us through, like, so to find the domain, we do this. That will be your vertical, horizontal asymptote, like just that. I don't really know how to.
To find the domain, if you have been given the fraction, get the denominator, set it not equal to 0. 1 minus x is not equal to 0. So for x, that is the domain.
Yes.
1. So you can mute your mic. So the domain is x is such that x should not equal to 0, but x has to be a member of all real numbers. That is the domain. You are done. At the same time, this is the horizontal, not the horizontal. This is the vertical asymptote. So the vertical asymptote is 1. The graph can never touch 1. That is the vertical asymptote. You get Swazi? How do we find the range? Get the inverse of this, or you can use this. If you have got same powers of x, for example this case, you just get the coefficient, then you divide them. So in this case the range is going to be not equal to negative 3 over negative 1, which is going to be equal to negative 3. At the same time, this is the horizontal asymptote, which is negative 3. I don't know if you are still confused, but I feel like this method for you on how to find the range, I feel like it's hard for you to remember to say if the powers are the same, I'm supposed to divide. If the numerator has got highest power, I'm supposed to get a 0. You remember those stuff, saying it's hard. Now I'm telling you to say, if you find the inverse of this function, then the same method which we used on how to find the domain, that is the same method you are going to use on how to find the range. When you find the range, that is the horizontal asymptote. Okay? Is that okay, Swazi? Swazi. Eh,
Yes, it's okay. What have you now?
okay. So now, this is what we do now. After finding that, I think Swaz wanted just us to run through on how we can find the domain and the range, but she knows how to sketch.
How to sketch? I just wanted this.
Thank you. So now I can conclude to say, if you're this is coming tomorrow, whether you like it or not, it's coming tomorrow. You ask me, you need to know how to find the domain, how to find the range, the vertical asymptote, the horizontal asymptote, and how to sketch. That's all.
Sir,
Yes.
how about if they give us, is it theoretical functions?
We are going there,
Can we
mama. we are
sketch
going
that?
we are going there, mama, don't worry.
Alright.
Yes. So let's get rid of this. We get a radical function.
Sir,
Yes, please.
My question is there any other way you can know how to plot rational function without having to pick points? Like I need to know which area of the XY plane the function will be on.
Yes, it's I think I've not gotten your question. You can come again. What are you saying? You are saying, is there any other method on how to sketch the graph without knowing the points?
Yes, like without having to do
The XY
okay,
plane?
like before we even do the
You need
like
to
for you
find
not to say okay this graph.
the x-intercept, then you know that the graph is supposed to be there. If you find the x-intercept, it's going to help you to know to say the graph is going to be like this. But that, I feel like that is the simplest method on how you can to say the graph is supposed to be like this. You have to get the coordinates.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure. So now let's talk a bit of elliptical functions. Now I have to get the paper for 1120. Oh, 11, 1100, but I can't see the paper. There's a question which I want us to solve from there. A very nice question. Where is the paper? Anyone to take a screenshot of math 1100? Where can I find it? Okay, I found it. So we have the question. Ah, it didn't come. Okay, it's here. We have a question which is f of x, that is question 7 from 1100, which was sketch the graph. It was negative the square root of 2 minus x. Here they can ask you to find the domain and range as well. Now let me tell you.
They'll ask the 1120 or
They
the
can
1120.
they can ask the 1100 and 1120 both.
Okay.
Yes. So we have this question. They can ask you to find the domain and the range. Now to find the domain, if you have got the square root or the radical function, what you have to do, get what is inside. In short, let me tell you this. I can never have this. If you were there yesterday, we were talking about this. If I have this is undefined. So I can never have the square root of a negative that is undefined. But I can have the square root of the 0, which is 0. So what I have to do is to find the domain. What I have to do, I need to get what is inside. Then I need to equate it to say 2 minus x has to be greater than or equal to 0. The only number which I'm supposed to put there is supposed to be only greater than or equal to 0. 0 going up and not negative. I can never have the square root of negative. So for x, that is the domain. So in this case, we are going to say that negative x will be greater than or equal to negative 2. The moment I divide it by a negative, the sign changes. X will be less than or equal to 2. What it means is that the only number which I can plug in here for this function to be defined, that number is supposed to be less than or equal to 2. Once I get the number greater than 2, this function is going to be undefined. Let's try. Let's get a number greater than 2. 3. If I say the square root of 2 minus 3, I'm going to get the square root of negative 1, which is undefined. But choose any number less than or equal to 2. We plug in if this function is going to be defined. Tell me. We get a 3, negative 3, 2, or negative 1. We can start from negative 1 or even 0. The square root of 2 minus 0 is going to give us the square root of 2. This is defined. To find the range of a radical function, you need first to sketch the graph. From here, it's going to be very much difficult for you to find the range, but we have to get the graph, then we'll be able to find the range. How do we sketch? That is very, very important. Get what is inside, set them equal to 0, solve for x. For example, in short, here we have already solved for x. X is equal to negative 2, because if I just put equal sign here, this is going to be true. What it means there is this: the value which I've gotten. Now, how then the domain, before we go there, you say that the domain is going to be equal to x is such that x has to be less than or equal to 2, but x has to be the little number, just like this. That's the domain. We sketch, then we need to get the what? The domain, the range. Dialect is bit challenging. You can, but it's bit challenging for you to get the range direct. What you have to do is sketching this is going to be very much easy. This is what we are going to do. Allow me to get rid of this. Also this.
Why are we saying x is less for the domain? X is less than or equal to 2.
We have solved for x, Wazi.
Yes.
So that's the domain. X has to be less than or equal to 2. The only value of x for this function to be defined is supposed to be less than or equal to 2. Once we get the value greater than 2, this function is going to be undefined. Does that make sense? Okay. Does that make sense, Kwazi?
If it's greater than, meaning we have a negative.
Yes, we have a negative in the square root. So if we have a negative in the square root, meaning that this is undefined, but we want the function to be defined. Yes. So now allow me to get rid of this. Also allow me to remove this. Now I'm telling you to sketch the graph. Get what is inside, set them equal to 0. Solve for x. So negative x is going to be equal to negative 2. X is equal to 2. What you have to do, get the coordinates. What you are going to do is, you get, this is going to be x, this is going to be y. What you are going to do, guys, is this. Very simple and straightforward. The value of x which you have found, put it on the middle here. Get two values up and two values down. That is what is disturbing you. What is up? What is down? Get two values up, get two values down. What I mean is, I get two values up, meaning that I can get a 1 and a 0. Two values down, I can get a 3 and 4. Then I plug in these values in this equation and find the values of y. Is that okay on how to get the x coordinate?
So I find in the range.
No, we want to graph. We want to sketch the graph. Yes. Is that okay on how to get the coordinate? Yes, please.
Yes.
Leviticus, you have got a question? And Chongo?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
When graphing, do you consider the root when substituting the numbers where x is, or you ignore it and you follow the 2 minus x is
Okay.
substituting the value to x?
Okay, I'm coming there. I'm coming there. I'm coming there. I'm coming there, sir. Chongo, what's your question? What's your question? The hand is up. Okay. Let's continue. Now, if you want, you can plug in the way it is. But if you want, if I tell you to get two numbers up, two numbers down, it is the same as I tell you to say, on when you get the numbers up, you can find the numbers which, when you plug in the values there, okay, that one can confuse. Let's plug in the values. If I put 0 here, what will be my value of y? The answer which you get here times the negative which is outside. Don't forget. What will be the answer? Root negative 2.
Negative 2.
Negative then root 2. If I put 1, what will be the answer?
Negative root 1.
We are now.
2 minus 1.
So what is 2 minus 1?
1.
So what is the square root of 1?
1.
1 times negative.
Negative 1.
Negative 1. If I plug in 2, 0. 0 times negative 0. 3, if I plug in 3,
1.
If I plug in 3, you see, meaning that no. If I plug in 3, it's going to give me undefined. If I plug in 3 here, it's going to give me negative what?
1.
Negative 1. So so I'm going to end. Yes. We are getting. What's your question?
Oh, so are we getting the whole function to plug in, or just getting the 2 minus x?
We are getting everything plus this negative there. Now, remember we said the x value is supposed to be less than or equal to 2, not so? So the only values which we are supposed to plug in here, we are supposed to follow this condition. Just plug in only values which are less than or equal to 2. Now, to make this function easy for us, what we can do, guys, is this. Let's get another number. Instead of us getting this is going to confuse you a bit. Okay? Let's put the value where there's 0. That value, when you plug in here, we need to get the square root. What value can be that? If I put negative 2, think that I'm going to get a value. If I put negative 2, I'm going to get what?
4.
Guys, be serious.
Negative 2.
Negative 2. Okay, I don't know if there's someone who is confused. Let me know so that I start afresh if you're confused.
I'm confused.
Too bad. Okay. Listen, guys, we are saying that we found that the 2 minus x has to be greater than or equal to 0. Then we said negative x greater than or equal to negative 2, x was less than or equal to 2. So when plugging in the values here, we need to plug in the values only. Those values of x are supposed to be less than or equal to 2. So we can start from negative 2. We can put 0. We can put 1 so that we get a value. We can put a 2. So if I plug in negative 2, I'm going to get a negative what? A negative 2. I'm going to get a square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. 2 times negative is negative 2. I'm going to get a 1. 1 times negative, negative 1. I plug in 2, I'm going to get a 0. 0 times negative, I'm going to get a 0. Then you are done. Mute your mic. Okay. From there now you can plot. You have this simple graph. Simple and very straightforward. So we are going to have 1. The x values we have just so let's put negative 1, negative 2, negative 1, negative 2. Then the y values we have here we can have 1, we can have 2. Here we are going to have negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. That's all. Follow the principles. What is negative 2 comma negative 2? Negative 2 comma negative 2 is here. Negative 1 comma negative 1. 1 comma negative what? In x1 comma negative 1 ni hapa. 2 comma 0 is here. The graph starts from here, it goes there. So this is our graph. It will open like this. Initially, if we didn't have a negative, the graph was supposed to go like this. But since we have got a negative, this is the graph. Now, from here you can find the range. To find the range, these are the values of y. You can see that the y values, they are starting from 0 all the way to negative infinity. We start the values of y from this line, or they can go all the way, we don't know, they can reach to Ridgeway campus, they can go to UTH, they can go all the way to Shirenje. I don't know where they can end. You get my point, eh? So we are starting from here. This graph is just going, that's why I put the arrow here. We don't know where it is ending. The borders ended there, but it can go there. I don't know where it can end. So the range is from 0 all the way to negative infinity. You can say that the range is from 0, 0 is included, you put this, comma, negative infinity. Negative infinity is not included, we don't know where it is ending. That is the range. Sketching the graph, this is how you sketch the graph. Do you have questions? No questions. Everything is clear? Yes, sir.
Range, you said range is only 5 and
Yes, ask. Ask what?
does the format matter? You need to put the 0 and the negative infinity because
Oh, no. Yes, yeah, that's true. It matters. This is wrong. It's supposed to be negative infinity, comma 0. Negative infinity not included, but 0 included. Yes.
so there is no need of indicating the asymptote.
Here there is no need of indicating the asymptote. We don't have asymptote. So the asymptote is 0. It can never go beyond 0, the y-axis. Then the x-axis, it can be less than or equal to 2. That's why you can see that here it is starting from 2, then it is going there. That's why we are saying that it's supposed to be less than or equal to 2. Starting from, it can go all the way to negative infinity. So the domain is from negative infinity all the way to 2. 2 is included. Any question? Yes, madam.
So I have a question. So where is the 0 coming from, the one we are using to determine the range? Like you said, the range is from negative infinity to 0. Like which 0 are we getting?
We are getting this 0, mama. This line. We came up with 2, 0. So it is starting from the line of y-axis. Where is it starting from and where is it going? It is from 0. This part is 0, is 2, 0. In the x-axis is 2, in the y is 0. That's why we are saying starting from 0 going there. We don't know where it is ending. In short, it can start from there, then it can go where it is. We don't know where it is ending. It can start from there, it goes there. It can just keep on going. We don't know where it is ending. That's why we are saying it ends to negative.
Positive. What do you mean? If we didn't have the negative here, the positive values, right? Yes. Then you would have said, if he sent from 0, then going to the positive, would have said from 0, from 0 all the way to positive infinity. Yes. Yes, bosses, you have got questions?
Anyone with a question? Questions, please. Swazi, you okay? We continue.